So, Gibran, can you tell me a little bit about how you came to coaching? Like what was your evolution? I think a lot of people know you as working with groups and like getting, like movements going. What was your evolution into coaching?
Well, thank you for asking. And I really wanted to put something out that speaks more about my approach to coaching. And I thought you would be the perfect person to interview me on this because you're a coach and because we go back and forth a lot talking about what's happening. You're definitely my confidant as I kind of work something out or try to figure out what the right intervention is. So you get aside from the coachee, you get the most close up view and you get to see a pattern. So that's
Right.
I'm really excited to be doing this with you. Um, well, I've been a coach for a long time, but I've been a coach to leaders in the context of bigger interventions, right? So I might be
Mhm.
doing organizational or systems change intervention, and I will coach the leaders through that. Those are often very tumultuous processes.
Right.
I also have had the privilege of running a fair number of quite prestigious leadership fellowships, right? Where
Mhm.
leaders from a whole, that's in fact how we met, right?
That's right.
Leadership from a whole field come together and they're together over a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years. And so I offer coaching in that context, not just facilitation. And so for the longest time, I just thought that was where I wanted to do coaching.
Mhm.
And COVID came with its challenges and opportunities, and I opened the door to just doing individual coaching outside of the context of a full leadership intervention. So that's kind of how I got there. I can tell you I think I want to tell you one more thing,
Okay.
which is even when I started that, uh, the focus, the invitation was onto kind of action focused leadership coaching. And
Mhm.
what I was trying to respond to was a pain point that I was seeing in the field where leaders are contending with incredible levels of complexity, with a culture that is kind of challenging leadership itself, right? So the leader becomes the man, right? Like the
Right.
person that needs to be challenged, and um, and a general culture of grievance
Right.
that is arising, right? That seems to have taken hold of many organizations, and so my intention was to help leaders through that, and I have been. I'm not saying that I didn't meet that intention,
Right.
but in the process, I discovered a lot more about what I'm bringing and about how the other work that I do, the guiding work, the healing work that I do, actually it can't be separated from the coaching work.
So let's we're gonna go there, but I want to like back up because you said that you coached for a long time and now you're doing it more individually. And I'm curious, I've heard you talk for years about a high threshold invitation. And so I want you to talk with me a little bit. I have a sense of it. I remember you've articulated it to me, and I'm like, that people need to hear that that's what they're stepping into when they're stepping into coaching with you. So can you just kind of move us through, like, what do you tell people? What is the high threshold invitation they're responding to if they want to be coached by you?
Yeah, that's great. It's such a great question. It matters a lot to me because, as you know, I've cared a lot about it. I have often been in rooms facilitating a whole group of people where my client gathered them and then brought me in. So they actually didn't uh, pass my high threshold invitation, right? They
Right,
went to the invitation that the client proposed.
right,
And
right.
so then sometimes I'm making a specific demand about like how to kind of mm, a challenge to like operate at a higher level. And it's a
Mhm.
lot easier to resist that when you're like, I didn't sign up for this. What does this do to me? Right.
Right.
And so for a long time, I've been like, well, how can I do more work? Right. that is operating at the highest level of growth, which includes challenge, right? Means like literally questioning beliefs and forms of being. And so when I coach somebody, the first thing that we do is a coaching assessment, and that's like a short call. And in that call, I am testing. I do 4 things that I invite the potential client to think about. First, I'm trying to gauge if they are invested in a victim mindset, right? Where they see themselves as aggrieved or oppressed. And I'm not saying that there's no structural oppression. There is.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
saying, like,
Of course.
if you make that a part of your identity, it's actually going to make it a lot more challenging to get out of it, right? Like, acknowledge that there's a real challenge being placed on you, but if you're too invested in a powerless position, I'm not going to be the coach for you.
Right.
And I tell that's pretty much the first thing I tell them, right? Like, very clear, like.
Okay.
And then I say a couple of other things. I say spirit is going to be in the middle, right? It's not going, they don't have to buy into my cosmology, right? But I'm not going to go kind of back here and be like a spiritual person and fill myself up and then just kind of quietly bring that in, right? That I have to do that in a lot of spaces in my life. But in the coaching space, I want to put it right at the center.
Great.
So what that means, I tell them, is we will begin with an invocation. You know what I mean? A centering and grounding practice. We will close the same way. So there's like that's there. And so that's for some people and it's not for some people.
Right.
And that's fine, right? Like that's the whole thing. I often say, one of my favorite taglines would be, it's not for everybody, right? Like and it's just not, right?
Of course, right, absolutely.
And it always works best when it's for you, right? The other one is, I am going to aim in each one of the sessions to say something, to find something to say to you that your friends won't.
Wow. Yeah. Great.
That your coworkers won't.
Great.
You know? And that helps me. And I'm not going to force that. Like, if it's not there, I'm not going to force that.
Right.
But I feel like that's one of the best things about having a coach, like as opposed to like a therapist who's just kind of listening without bias, right? Like, I want to be like, well, this is getting in your way, you know? Not that a therapist doesn't do that. But, you know, I want to just kind of
absolutely.
point it out. And what I do that, when we do that at the intake, the person's prepared. So when they feel bothered by the feedback, they know I told them. They don't have to buy it either, but I'm going to tell them what I see, you know? I'm not you don't have to buy my cosmology, you don't have to buy my feedback, right? But you're paying me some money and investing some time in my helping you kind of find your way back to yourself. And the last one is, I want you to do something actionable in the real world after this call, right? It has to be not just a thinking differently, not just have a different insight, but to actually do something with that insight. You know, whether that be a embodied practice, whether that be a challenging conversation, whether that be a hard decision that you've been avoiding. But I really want to leave you with something actionable beyond insight. And so we do all of those. And then I don't let them say yes at the end of that call. I'm like, you need at least 24 hours to think about this.
What's your reasoning there?
I want them to pray about it or meditate about it. And I want them to come back with a yes that is complete, because I feel like they're making a real commitment to me and to themselves. And so like I want you to sit with what I'm proposing. Now, 2 other details about it is, unlike a lot of coaches, I'm not trying to keep you forever. You know, I want to do 5 sessions with you, and after, on the third or fourth session, we can decide if we want 5 more. And so we do up to 10. And then whatever happens, we have a pause. It's not that we can
Got it.
coach together again, but we stop, right? Because what I'm trying to create is a cauldron for transformation, a kind of pressure cooker, right? I want you
Got
to
it.
feel like this is an opportunity to take a leap now, right? To make the change now. And so that kind of time pressure uh, creates that intensity that I'm looking for.
I love that. I think that's really unique, right? It actually, for me, it puts you in this great role of actually coaching and not being responsible for the action that's taken, right? There's something that feels right-sized about that with folks. But you said 2 things that I want to get back to. One is right at the beginning, you said, you started this coaching being action focused, and you found that you're wanting to go to more depth. And then you just said in your last answer, you said, I want to bring people back to who they are.
Yep.
And so I just want you to talk with me a little bit about this depth piece, this bringing people back to who they are. What does that mean? And what does that look like?
That's great. That's beautiful. Let me start. So most of the time when we seek out a coach, we have a challenge that we're contending with, right? It could be unhealthy behavior that you can't stop. It could be a relationship that is not working. It could be a way old trauma is being reenacted in your life. It could be a leadership challenge. It could be like you're having a really hard time at work. I want to be clear. I have a therapist,
Yeah.
I have a medicine guide, that teacher. That's not just my guide, but my teacher in that work. And I work with. I have you, right? Like I'm actively working on my own self, right? That's important to say.
Mm-hmm.
What has become obvious is there's a way to coach you to kind of almost like cognitive behavioral, like let's change the behavior. And I think that's super important. Sometimes a behavior has to stop in order for something else to be possible.
Absolutely.
Particularly an addictive behavior or something like that, right? But inevitably, what it seems to me is like what you're coming for, the pain point that you're trying to address, the thing you're trying to solve for, is rooted in something deeper,
Right.
often younger, right?
Right.
And so my interest is in self-sovereignty. And what I consider self-sovereignty is your capacity, right, to come back to center when you're triggered, when you're facing a challenge. So if you think about people that are not yet self-sovereign, that are still early on their stages of their healing, what they need and will ask for is for the environment around them to become safe and chained up around their wound, right?
Right.
Which is usually necessary at a certain stage of your healing process.
Right.
But I want to get you to the stage where you can bring yourself back to coherence. And the only way you get to that is by kind of remembering who you are, coming back to yourself, right? The power and the goodness that comes when you are actually in integrity with yourself, when you're starting to speak and see the truth in yourself and for yourself, and be honest with what is happening and with the blind spot that needs your gaze and your care.
So do you want to say anything then? I mean, I'm aware that a big part of how you work with people, that kind of why people come to you again and again is some of your healing and guiding work. Do you want to share some of that with folks?
Yeah, it's yeah. So I think these two things are complementary, and maybe for a little while, I never saw them as completely separate, right? But I do this healing work, right? Where it's like, let's say you have like 5 coaching sessions with me over 5 to 10 weeks. Here, you come in for a day, right? And you have all those hours at once,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
And there's like it's a high intensity intervention,
Right.
where I'm bringing it's a more of a ceremony, right? It's
Yeah.
a and it has a healing aspect to it, and we just get a deeper into nooks and crannies that are harder, um, with the coaching. However, I people can do one or the other. I'm not against people just coming for the one or for the other,
Yeah.
but I feel like they work best in concert with each other.
Right.
That
Yeah.
being said, that's part of what I tell my clients. I'm like, look, I'm not gonna push this part of my work on you, my coaching clients. I just
Right.
want you to know that I do it, right? And it is possible that in the process of the coaching, I might notice that there's like a river flowing in us, right? And there's kind of a stone, right? Or stones that can get in the way. And
Mm,
sometimes you can take that stone and move it, right? And like the flow opens, right?
that's great.
And
That's
that
great.
can often be better done in one of these intensive sessions,
Got it.
To be clear for people who are wondering, the sessions have to be in person. The coaching does not. The
That's
coaching can
great.
be, I do it with people all over the country, um, sometimes the world, uh, but the coaching, includes being physically with me in the great city of Boston.
We had to get that in. Um, just want to thank you for not only just kind of this brief explanation, but also just the work. I feel like I'm learning a lot as I'm kind of walking alongside you coaching. I'm just learning a lot about how to be with people and like what lights them up and how they find who they are and how they take action from that place, right? I feel like you don't get stuck in any of these places. You don't get stuck in the healing or the insight or the action. It feels like it's a really rich mixture of all of those things. That's what I'm seeing as I'm with you, but also as I see what your clients are saying. So just like really grateful to be learning with you along here.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, what we both want. I'm not trying to speak for you. You and I have talked about this, right? Is
Right.
for people to walk more freely upon this world,
Yeah.
and freely means in a peace with themselves, and able to contribute, to give the best of themselves in a way that helps more of humanity, and that is often connected to a sense of deep meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, um, and that when we have those things, incredible potential gets unlocked, and we don't have a culture that is that aims for that, right? We have a culture that produces uh, consumers, that extracts from
Right.
us, and that yields kind of high rates of loneliness, anxiety, and depression. And
Right.
so what we want to do is help people contend with what it is to be alive in these days, with significant affluence for many, but not a richness of spirit. And I see that in you, and we're not gonna turn it around for me to interview you, but I think it's amazing that our approaches are so different. I love the magic
Mm.
that you bring, the feminine power that you bring, and how they help us get people to the same place. It's really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
I adore you.